Good morning, everyone. If you're here already, we have about 5 minutes we're going to take just for tech time for everybody to make sure they can get logged in. And then we should be getting started about 10:05. We'll make sure we give everyone some time to get in. We have about 46 people on right now. Good morning. If you're just joining us, we're going to get started at about 10:05. Give you time to get all set up. Okay, everyone, it's about 10:05 and we have about 65 people on. Looks like we have a pretty good representation of all of our member groups. And so I feel like we can go ahead and get started. I'm just going to do, a real quick welcome and let you all know that the focus of today is just to talk about innovation efforts across the state and TxDOT. The focus is on TxDOT, and I just wanted to make it a shorter meeting this time. I know everyone's really busy this time of year. It's been a crazy year so far. So I just would like to have this opportunity to get everyone geared up and give you ideas of what might be coming in the next few months. And a couple of quick things. We have our everyday counts round 7. We're looking for ideas, and we have until about April 11th if anyone here would like to suggest an idea or bring something up, we can write it up together. I'm willing to help you, and then we can submit that if you'd like. And then also we have our STIC incentive. As you know, every year there is a fund of about $100,000 that can go to a specific project. And we have a really good project we picked last year related to next gen traffic incident management. And they will give us an update today. And then we also have an opportunity for another project this year. And so we can look at ideas on that as well. A lot of the secondary and other projects that we had looked at last year have gone on to do something else, or they morphed into something else. So they may not be on the table this year, but if you have an idea, then please feel free to send that to Aaron or myself. And we can take a look at it and see where we can go with that. And that being said, let's move on. And I'd like to welcome Kevin P., my Director of Research and Technology Implementation at TxDOT. And I just would like for him to give us a quick update on what's going on with our TI. Good morning, Kevin. You're muted.
Thank you. Again, good morning, everybody, and thank you everyone for joining here. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a brief update, at least on the research side of the house, of how things are going. Again, you know, everything we do is innovative, and your help in identifying innovative topics is always great to make sure we're moving forward with the things that we believe that the state needs to do, as well as the nation. Currently, we are in a RFP request for proposals, and we've received about 106 proposals on 34 topics, innovative topics that have gone forward based on input from our tech subject matter experts, as well as some of our NPOs as well. And for instance, of those 34, for construction, maintenance, and materials, in those areas, we have about 11 innovative topics that kind of focus on things like evaluation of nanomaterials in concrete for improved durability, as well as we're looking at some AI, some artificial intelligence for pavement condition assessments from 2D and 3D surface images along the lines of structures and hydraulics, bridges, and of those sorts. We're looking at things from bridge deck condition evaluation and replacement methods. For safety and operations, which always is #1 topic for TxDOT and transportation as a whole, we have such topics as real-time decision support tools that we're trying to develop for urban roadway safety improvements, using vehicle probe data to evaluate speed limits for Texas highways, which we have various speed limits throughout the state. So that's pretty significant as well. Along the lines of strategy and innovation, topics such as develop guidelines for the use of UAS. Again, those are drones or and smartphones for construction and utility inspections, as well as a real hot topic in the nation right now is the electrification of our infrastructure. So we have some research out there to work on or identify the readiness plan that we're trying to put together as well. And I think that may be a discussion perhaps maybe either Al or Darren may touch on later on. And for our planning environment areas, there are topics such as determine feasibility and methodologies of incorporating third-party traffic data, such as Waze and those things, into transportation. So those are just some of the topics that we currently have that we're going to be looking to begin and executing and researching in the next fiscal year, which for us begins in September 1st, which is our FY23 period. In addition to that, we're closing out this fiscal year about 60+ projects. A handful are implementation, the rest are primarily research. And as we have done in the past, we're hoping that we can share those with you guys, the STIC committee, council at some point, and allow you to perhaps select those topics that are of interest to you and bring those back to the STIC to allow our subject matter experts and our researchers the opportunity to present those topics to you and the benefits that are associated with the outcomes of those projects. So again, that's kind of where we are with research. for now, and thank you guys for attending.
Okay, that leaves Darren. Darren, are you up and ready?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Same
Well, welcome.
challenge with the dark light outside as Kevin had. So a lot of things happening in TxDOT, and I want to kind of update you on and that relate to the broader transportation capabilities in the state. Kevin mentioned we're well into our project's life cycle on our research projects for the upcoming fiscal year. We also are in the midst of everyday counts project call, and I think Kirk might talk to that in a little bit. We have a Urban Air Mobility Advisory Committee ongoing that was directed in our last legislature, and they are developing reports related to existing legislation or legislation that may be needed to facilitate the use of drones, not only for commercial delivery type purposes and in things like inspections and those type of operations, but also in the longer term for passenger lift capabilities in small platforms. So that's ongoing, and that report will be due in September. But knowing the normal process of getting reports cleared before they're sent, we'll probably have most of that report done early summer, and then we'll be vetting that through the process of getting it approved for submission to the legislature. We're also supporting Senate Bill 1308, which asks the state to examine our border operations and how connected and autonomous vehicle technologies might better facilitate those operations. And it also asks the state to look at the broad-ranging impacts of those technologies on safety and workforce concerns. And our state's Connected and Autonomous Vehicle Task Force is directly in support of answering that bill, and those the people within TxDOT, the freight and international trade folks are leading that effort, but we're also supporting that as well. I don't think Kevin mentioned it. We're trying to work with other states on a potential pooled fund for effectively a bridge academy here in Texas that would be at CTR at the Pickle Center area. And it's a fantastic opportunity. We actually have real components of bridges that could be used for training and development and design and things like that. And so really earnestly looking forward to the potential that becomes a focal point for the nation in terms of bridge construction. We have an effort within the department on looking at the potential for digital twins and what that may mean. And there's a lot of applications. It's a very buzzy term right now, but what that may mean for the department. And we're looking at standing up a effort within the department to begin to define how TxDOT might want to look at use of those technologies. We have a statewide data contract. I don't think it's been awarded yet. I could be wrong, but we have a current one, but we've got one out for proposals, and the intent of that is to have data relative to the traffic operations of our system that comes from external sources and helps enhance our awareness of the system, and then allows us to improve efficiency, ideally real time as the data becomes more real time, but also for planning and design and construction and maintenance. There also is an emphasis from our executive director on identifying innovative projects, technology projects in every district in the state, and to begin to share the ideas that are happening in districts broadly across the department, kind of like what we're doing with the STIC as it relates to identifying small innovative ideas that are happening not only in Texas, but from other states. But these would be the large scale type projects. And then begin to track all of those and think about those being rolled into our overall strategic planning as we talk about developing a capability across the state. So that's been initiated. We have a great deal of information already collected, and we're sorting through the big winners and what we need to do to begin to advance those across the department and share that information. Two more. Deeply involved in developing an electric vehicle charging infrastructure plan for Texas, relative to the formula funding that was identified in the latest infrastructure bill. And I know Kirk's going to talk about that in a moment, but that is TxDOT is the lead for that. We're working with other state agencies as directed in the bill or in the law, as well as a number of stakeholders, and that will continue into the summer and will be due on the 1st of August to federal highways. And there's a joint program office that needs to receive it too. And then finally, you'll hear a little bit about an ongoing innovation alliance that we've had for several years, as well as our technology task force that have a lot of relationship to what we do in the STIC. And we'll talk more about that as that's presented later today. But just really excited about all the activities going on. It's almost more than I can keep my head wrapped around sometimes. But it's a great time to be involved in this space, and very proud of the work that everybody in the STIC that supports the STIC, as well as these other efforts, are doing for our state. So thank you.
Thank you, Darren. I appreciate that. Al, are you up and running?
I think I am.
Oh, there you are.
Shelley, can you see me?
I can see you. Welcome.
Good. Can you see my slides?
Not yet.
Good, because I don't have any slides.
Oh,
Perfect.
you're so funny.
Actually, Shelley, since you mentioned EDC earlier, just a note, you're right that it runs through April 11th. In this round, we're broadening the focus beyond just project delivery, but to include innovative and underutilized practices that enhance safety for all users, support sustainable and resilient infrastructure, and address equity as part of the project planning and delivery. So if anyone is looking to submit ideas, those are going to be the ones that gain most traction in the process. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up on that. The electric vehicle charging program, I know, has been mentioned a few times. Just FYI, Kirk is our program manager for that in the office, and he'll have he'll be our direct point of contact. $60 million for Texas this fiscal year, and about $300 million over the life of the bill. So just a heads up on that. Some late breaking news. Yesterday, USDOT released their new strategic plan, and FHWA is going to be reworking ours to make sure it aligns with that. But I just want to give everyone a sense of the goals of USDOT, because as discretionary grants come out, it's all going to align with those goals. So I just mentioned them briefly. The first, of course, is safety, but safety for all. There's a lot of emphasis on vulnerable road users. So that includes, fatalities that from non-motorized sources, pedestrians of particular note, bicyclists, those kinds of things. The second goal is economic strength and global competitiveness. That's essentially just investing in the transportation system to provide reliable and efficient access to resources, markets, good paying jobs, that kind of thing. Equity, we hear that a lot, and clearly it showed up as a primary goal of USDOT, just reducing inequities across transportation systems and the communities that they affect. The fourth is climate and sustainability, just tackling the climate crisis by ensuring that transportation plays a central role in that solution. Transformation, which is most applicable, I think, to the STIC here, about really designing for the future, investing in purpose-driven research and innovation to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. And then the internal goal on organizational excellence. So just wanted everyone to be aware of those USDOT strategic goals. The FHWA plan should come out in the next month or so, I would imagine. So everyone's heard of the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act, IDJA. otherwise known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law or bill that was signed last November. Kirk is going to give more of a general overview shortly, so stay tuned for that. Most recently, though, the president signed the Fiscal 22 Appropriations Act just a week ago or so, or a couple of weeks ago. And what that did was, so we had a new authorization bill, but because there were so many new programs in there, there's appropriations law that says you cannot implement new programs under a continuing resolution. So now that the full fiscal year 22 appropriations bill has been signed, all of the funding, all of the programs within the bipartisan infrastructure law are now active, and FHWA is scrambling to try and pull as much guidance as we can. We're trying to do it strategically so that we hit the most critical ones first, and then more as time and resources allow. I really wanted to focus on, in terms of bill, programs that focus on innovation and technology deployment and advanced research. So I'm just going to briefly mention what those are, noting that some of these may not be FHWA administered. They may be other modes within USDOT, but nonetheless apply to research and innovation and would likely be open to everyone on this call. The first is a SMART grant. SMART is an acronym for Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation. It's a $1 billion program. It's competitive for states, locals, and tribal governments in conducting demonstration projects to advance a smart city or community technologies to improve efficiency and safety. Smart city, I know there's several activities going on in Texas already, so that might be something of interest to this group. Of equal interest is the UTC, or the University Transportation Centers program. It's funded at $500 million, so it's expanded. I know we have one or two here in Texas. It's a competitive grant program that advances expertise and technologies in the U.S. in transportation at 2- and 4-year colleges and universities. The third is the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Infrastructure, or ARPA-I, which is new. It's a new program modeled after the Department of Defense DARPA program, for those that are familiar with that, as well as the Department of Energy's ARPA-E program, really focusing on leveraging science and technology to address efficiency and safety and climate goals for the transportation infrastructure. So it's going to support advanced research and deployment, innovative partnerships, and technology transfer activities across multiple sectors. That is the ARPA-I program. A fourth is the Open Research Initiative, which is a new program. It's authorized at $250 million. It will establish an advanced transportation research pilot program that supports states, local governments, universities, nonprofits, and private sector by enabling them to submit unsolicited research proposals addressing unmet USDOT research needs. A fourth is called the NET Council, Non-Traditional and Emerging Transportation Technology Council, which existed under the last administration, but is now institutionalized. And this council is responsible for identifying and resolving jurisdictional and regulatory gaps associated with non-traditional or emerging transportation technologies, including issues related to safety, environmental review, funding, and financing. This is typically for the kinds of things that don't fit neatly within a particular mode within USDOT. So it was pulled together under the last administration to make sure that there was, we're breaking down silos. Let's see. The last one I think I'll mention is about within Bill is about $4.5 billion in research activities across all of DOT's operating administrations across all the modes, focusing on a key range of priorities, including research on vulnerable road users. You'll hear that term a lot, VRUs, vulnerable road users. Impacts from self-driving vehicles or automated vehicles, reduction of driver distractions, and emerging alternative fuel vehicles and infrastructure. So stay tuned for, there's going to be a lot more on this coming up. I mentioned NEVI and $300 million in funds over the next 5 years. We will be working closely with our friends over at TxDOT to make sure that we can take most advantage of that program. We're also going to be working with MPOs, cities and counties and TxDOT to implement one of the new programs called PROTECT, which stands for Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation. It just rolls off the tongue. I am reading this. It's not committed to memory, but it's a new program, and PROTECT, as I recall, has both a formula element and a discretionary grant element to it. So we're going to be working with folks to help implement this program, which is really aimed at mitigating transportation impacts due to extreme weather and global climate change. And, we are absolutely open to going out and making the kinds of presentations that you'll hear from Kirk to anyone who asks. So regarding the new law, I've gone out multiple times already. And so if you're interested in having a little bit more detailed discussion on it, feel free to talk to myself or to Kirk. Be happy to help. And I think, Shelley, with that, I am done. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That was a lot of great information and focusing on a lot of things that are initiatives we all care about, safety being a big one. And another thing, today after Kurt gives us a really important overview of the bill, we all are very curious about some of these things. We've heard a lot, but I think from every presentation I've seen on it, I learned something a little bit different that's more beneficial than I realized, or something along those lines. And then afterwards, we'll be talking about breaking down silos and how we can, bring some of our innovation efforts together in a way that, at least we're all on the same page, we're all aware of what's going on. And I think you're going to find some interesting information up ahead. Kirk, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready to go.
All right, fire away.
Good morning. My name is Kirk Pfeiffer. I'm with the Federal Highway Texas Division. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the bipartisan infrastructure law. But before I do that, I just want to let you know that there's a national STIC meeting that's coming up on June the 1st. And y'all are invited to this national STIC meeting. We're going to be talking about the EDC 7, and perhaps by the summer, we'll have an announcement of all the ED7 innovations that we'll be pursuing in 23 and 24. Also, Shelley mentioned earlier about the April 11th deadline for innovations of interest. If you guys are interested in following up on that, we're looking at those projects that have national impact, that are game-changing, that have urgency and scale, and they support procedures that are available to support technology transfer and national deployment. And there is a deadline, April 11th, that we mentioned. Also, there's a sample response form that has examples of how to fill out a innovation of interest. If you're interested, we'll put the website where you go to fill out the form on the chat, in the chat pod in a few minutes. Okay, next slide. Okay, next slide. Some of the bill highlights, I think Al did a great job of going through the innovation part of it, but I wanted to do a high level overview of the bill infrastructure law in its entirety and talk a little bit about how it goes beyond transportation. It includes $567 billion across all the DOT modes. And we're going to talk a little bit about the high points of the provisions within the bill act itself. Next slide. So this is a timeline of when the bill was enacted. As Al mentioned, November 15th, 2021 was the exact date that the president signed it into law under Public Law 11758. But it took several months to get through the Senate and the House. And so we finally have a bill that goes 5 years. It's a multi-year, 5-year bill. Next slide. It's a once in generation investment in infrastructure. So it's a transformational investment, largest bill that in memory in history. And overall, it enhances US competitiveness, economic growth, creating jobs, making the US more resilient to climate change, and equity is a big factor in this bill. So it's the largest federal investment in public transit ever. It's the largest federal investment in passenger rail, largest dedicated bridge investment, drinking water, energy transmission, electric vehicle infrastructure under the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. And it ensures every American has access to high-speed internet. So it's going to create about 2 million jobs per year. Next slide. These are the breakdown across all the DOT modes of how much we get under the 5-year period of the Bill Act. By far, Federal Highway Administration's got the most contract authority at $303 billion, almost $304 billion, with advanced appropriations from Congress under the general fund of $47.3 billion. Next slide. So the high points of the bill provisions, it provides 5 years, as I mentioned, 350.8 for highways, more than a dozen new highway programs, including that resiliency project, the Protect, carbon reduction program, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, discretionary projects like bridges, infrastructure. Protect is part of it, like Al mentioned, part of it is discretionary. I think it's around 1.5 billion is discretionary. Wildlife crossings and reconnecting communities. The focus is on safety, bridges, climate change, resiliency, and project delivery, also equity as well. So there's a $90 billion transfer from the general fund of the US Treasury to the Highway Trust Fund to keep the Highway Trust Fund solvent for years. Next slide. Of the $350.8 billion, we have contract authority of $303.5 billion. Contract authority is a special form of budget authority, which allows us to move ahead without an appropriations bill being passed each year. 47.3 from the general fund, 9 categories of HIP funding under the bill. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And funding is available to a large range of recipients, including local public agencies, RMAs, MPOs, cities and counties, etc. Next slide. Of the $303 billion in contract authority, most of it is apportioned under apportionments to the state, 90% in fact. 10% is allocated to discretionary type programs. So it includes a 90-10 split between portion versus allocated funds. Next slide. Under the highway and infrastructure programs, or HIP, the formula program takes 72% of the total, 28% discretionary, which means you apply for in terms of grant applications to a notice of funding opportunity. All of these are provided from the general fund of the US Treasury Department. And there's 9 categories of advanced appropriations. 6 are supplemental to contract authority. Next slide. These are the 9 categories of HIP funding under the Bill Act. Again, these are all from the general fund. But if you look at it, the $5 billion that Al mentioned, and so did Darren, the National Electric Vehicle Formula Program comes from the HIP funding, which is the general fund of the U.S. Treasury Department, but also the Infra Discretionary Grant Program, the Ferry Boat Program, the University Transportation Centers that were mentioned earlier under innovation. They're all funded under HIP, under the general fund program from the DOT, from the congressional, the Treasury. Next slide. The funding I mentioned is to a large range of recipients, and this shows you by category of funds which state, local tribes are eligible to apply. And as you can see, MPOs can apply for just about every program except for the top 3. And local programs, local cities and counties can apply for several different discretionary and formula programs. Of course, the states, tribal nations can apply, and PAs, which mean public authority agencies like the RMAs that we have in the state of Texas. Next slide. So apportioned highway programs, there's 8 different apportioned contract authority programs, including 2 new. And there's changes to the contract authority programs in terms of eligibility. Next slide. These are the contract authority programs. The 2 new ones were mentioned earlier, I believe, the Protect Formula programs for building up your infrastructure to withstand extreme weather events, the Carbon Reduction Program to fight greenhouse gas emissions. The rest of them have been around in previous acts, and they continue forward with higher amounts of contract authority. Next slide. I don't know if you can see this slide very well, but basically it shows that California is second to Texas in terms of apportionments under the bipartisan infrastructure law. So we beat California. We're the largest in the country in terms of our formula apportionment programs. Next slide. And looking back 1 year, we beat California last year too under the FAST Act. So we're still #1. We overtook the #1 spot in 2020, I believe, under the FAST Act. So we're a growing state, and it's just a reflection of our growth and economy. Next slide. This one just shows the Texas apportionments under the bipartisan infrastructure law. And under the Protect Act, it's around $140 million. Under the Carbon Reduction Program, I can't read it very well, it's about $123 million. And under the National Highway Freight, it's around $135 billion. And so it's a breakdown of basically all the different apportionments across the board. Next slide. So there's a set aside for safe and accessible transportation options. And I think Al mentioned this, that MPOs must use 2.5% of its PL funds to look at safety and accessible options for all people of all ages and abilities. The state may opt out of the requirements if the state has a complete street standard in place, policy in place. And for the purpose of this requirement, the term complete streets means standards or policies that ensure safe accommodation for all users, pedestrians, bicyclists, public transit, children, older individuals, and disabled individuals, motorists, and freight vehicles. Next slide. Under the travel demand data and modeling, one of the requirements under the Bill Act is to carry out a study that gathers travel data and travel demand forecasts across the country, and it seeks opportunities to support the travel planning and data collection process to improve the quality of our metropolitan transportation plans, our TD transportation demand forecast models, and travel demand forecasts for our long-range planning and short-range planning purposes. And it develops and make publicly available a multimodal web-based tool that will enable states and MPOs to evaluate the effects of highway and transit investments and conditions of all transportation assets within the state. So that's new under the Bill Act. Next slide. Under research, development, technology, RD&T, and education, there's a set aside for highway research. We're going to talk about that. The strategic innovation for revenue collection, which is outside the highway trust fund, the typical gas tax of 18.6 cents per gallon. That's eventually going to be phased out, I believe, under, in future. And there's going to be a change in the way we do advanced transportation technologies. Next slide. So these are the breakdowns of the funding of the annual bill funding for each of the major highway related research, RD&T, and education programs. So the University Transportation Centers are 100 million per year. ITS is 110 million. As you can see, training and education, 25.5 million. And under highway research and development, it's 147 million per year. Next slide. These are the highway research set-asides, that strategic innovation for revenue collection that sets aside $15 million for each year for a total of $75 million to look at other options other than the highway trust fund, the gas tax program. There's a national VMT fee set aside, so it looks into a study. I think there's about 12, 15 pilots across the state, across the country, that looks into VMT fees as a potential revenue source outside of the highway trust fund, typical gas tax collection, and the accelerated implementation and deployment of advanced digital construction management systems. They're looking for a new name for that because it's such a long drawn out name. It's basically the one that sets aside 20 million for each of the 22 to 26 from the TIDP funding. The Advanced Transportation Technology and Innovation Mobility Deployment Program, it sets aside 60 million for each of the fiscal years for a total of $300 million for research. Next slide. So strategic innovation for revenue collection, I just want to let you know that they are looking for alternatives to the revenue collection process, and they're looking at the feasibility of a road usage fee and other alternative revenue mechanisms to help ensure the long-term solvency of the highway trust fund. And they're going to do pilots at the state, local, and regional level. They're looking at data privacy, administrative costs, and it's also expanding eligibility to include MPOs and local governments in the story to apply for these funds. Just look at other alternatives to the highway trust fund, gas tax, road user, using road usage fees. Next slide. They changed the name of the Advanced Transportation and Congestion Management Technologies Deployment, which is a mouthful. It's ATTIMD, which it's just as long and drawn out as the original, but the program focuses on deployment and operation of technologies. It broadens the eligibility to include all MPOs, 300 or 400 of them across this country, and it reserves 20% of program funds for projects serving rural areas. Next slide. So for more information to close things out, there is a bipartisan infrastructure law website, so please visit it. They're frequently adding fact sheets and program guidance and apportionment notices, and the information that was in this presentation, a lot of it was gleaned from that website. So if you guys have any questions, I'll feel free to entertain them now, or Shelley, do we want to move on with the agenda?
Well, so there might be some questions, so I think it's okay if anybody would like to ask questions of Kirk right now while he's on screen.
One question that popped up on the comment slide on the comment fields was, how do we get copies of these slides? And I'll make sure that Shelley has a copy of these slides to send out to everybody, and feel free to use them and to at your own, for your own information and for others who are interested in the bill act itself.
Thank you.
There is a comment about the National STIC meeting, and it looks like there's information from Shelley that talks about what the purposes of it and to share information. Also, as part of the National STIC meeting, we can also set aside a room for just Texas only. If you guys decide you want to, convene and have a discussion internally, we can have a room set up as part of the web conference to spark further conversation within the state. That's about all I had today. Are there any questions or comments from the audience? Now is your time to ask. I've been doing these presentations to universities and to the STIC, of course, and to Tempo. We're doing a presentation April 13th on this subject. So I've been making the rounds as well as Al and many others in the office to get the information, the word out on the Bill Act. So I appreciate your time and attention today. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
So
I can't
have you
get away.
noticed that anyone, like when you do talk to people about this, is there any area that people tend to have more questions related to? Like, is there something of focus that everyone
I think
seems to
the
be really
biggest
excited?
change is, the biggest change, Shelley, is that the funding has been opened up, not just the state DOT. It used to be the state DOT as a pass-through, but now we have MPOs and local public agencies that are now competing for these funds, and they will be awarded to cities and counties and the RMAs, for example, LPAs. So it's going to be a big change. It's a big transformational change from how we used to do pass through TxDOT and TxDOT receiving a bulk of the funds. Now it's going to be spread out so rural areas can compete as well as the urban metropolitan planning areas. So that's a big change.
Well, furthermore on
Everybody-
that, do you think that there would be like a technical assistance component that like the state DOTs would still fill to maybe help facilitate the use of the funds in that way? Or do you think it will
Yeah.
be something where they won't be needed at all?
We're going to need a lot of TxDOT handholding because some of these MPOs and they've never been project sponsors before using federal aid funds. And so they have to go through the NEPA process as well as making sure it's in the metropolitan plan and TIP and the STIP. And I'm sure a lot of cities and counties aren't even aware of all the federal requirements that are going to be thrown in the mix for just $1 of federal funds. It federalizes the project, and all these NEPA requirements, metropolitan planning requirements under 23 CFR are going to be hitting them cold for the first time. So we need the local program offices and the districts of TxDOT to help bring this together and to work together as one to make this happen.
Hey,
That
Kirk,
was spot on. Go ahead.
Kirk, this is Joe Trammell with Precinct 1 in Tarrant County. I've got a question, and I'm not sure which, I guess, of the categories this would fall in, but you mentioned it's opened up to a lot of the local, I guess, local folks. If we
Yeah.
had a bridge that we were wanting to upgrade, I took a picture of your slide because I didn't know you were going to make them available, but I didn't know if it would fall under if we had a bridge we wanted to upgrade to keep it from flooding, would that fall under the bridge program that's not available to local people, or would that fall under the bridge investment program, which is under the discretionary, which I'm not too sure about that either. Or is that even possible?
There's multiple funding sources, Joe. If you want to give me a call,
Okay.
or email, I can send you some more information. But a bridge project can be eligible for a number of different federal aid apportion programs and discretionary, programs, and not to exclude National Highway Performance Program or Surface Transportation Block Grant or the bridge program. The standard programs, assuming it's on system, and some off system are eligible as well.
Well, ours obviously we're going to be all off system because we're a county.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is your, I'll message you on the side and get your contact information then.
Yeah, I
Joe-
mean, there's some international bridges that are going to get some money. We know in Laredo and World Trade Bridge, and there's another bridge in FAR district that's going to get money. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. I just, I can't just tell you offhand all the different options that are available.
Sure.
But if you give me a call or send me a text, I'll try to kind of sequester what those are for
Kirk,
you.
I would add that from the Bridge Formula Program, there is a percentage that has to be spent on off-system bridges. And I
Right.
believe TxDOT is in the process of developing their criteria on how they're going to make that selection for those dollars, in addition to all the other sources that you talked about.
Yeah, that's great. Great comment, Al. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Is there
now we're
anything-
at break time, and if you still have more questions for Kirk, I know that he would love to receive them. Kirk, do you want to post your email or some way for them
Yeah.
to just get in touch with you in your
Yeah,
in
I'll
the
put it
chat
in
there?
the chat box here.
Right, and I think we'll have a couple videos that Aaron will run for us during the break, but feel free to take your 10-minute break and we'll reconvene when everybody gets back. But 11 o'clock is a scheduled time to hear about the STIC incentive project from last year, our Next Gen 10 project. So we'll see you back in a few minutes.
TxDOT is using unmanned aircraft vehicles for an ever-increasing number of applications. The data captured by these systems saves time, provides a much broader picture of the surroundings, and can sometimes go where man cannot. But based on external conditions like wind, rain, mist, smoke, and lighting, the data collected by these vehicles could be compromised.
When you think about weather conditions, there's a lot to it. There's the lighting, there's the turbulence due to the air and the buffeting of the aircraft. And so there's the flying considerations, but there are also are considerations on how suboptimal weather conditions affect the data that you're collecting.
These devices are increasingly used for a variety of applications. You name it, bridge inspections, construction monitoring, and even traffic incident management. And this was one of the areas that TxDOT was interested in exploring.
That allowed us to evaluate how the UAS is operating and how the data is being collected in suboptimal conditions, because most accidents, as you imagine, happen when it's dark or dusk or at night when it's rainy in conditions that are suboptimal. So it was a real good fit for this research for us to focus on that application, and then we can interpolate the results to all the different things that we'd like to use a UAV for.
With our colleagues at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, we conducted computer simulations that mimicked the impact of a variety of environmental conditions. Lighting, for example. So we had morning, noon, afternoon, dusk, night, but we also simulated the effect of built-in LEDs and also supplemental lighting. Foggy conditions from 3-mile visibility, which is basically no fog, all the way down to 50 meters, 160 feet. And then we processed all of that through software and, photogrammetry software, and looked at the impact.
Most of it is just still pictures, and the software we use, it creates a 3D model. So we can combine a whole bunch of different pictures into one model. And the big benefit is that you don't really need to have a surveyor out on a crash site anymore.
We came up with a series of tangible recommendations for the department. The first recommendation was to establish a program to use UAS-based platforms to support traffic incident management activities, including crash reconstructions.
This particular research done by A&M was just stellar. They did a perfect job. And so they gave us tons of data back and really defined when it makes sense to use UAV in these conditions.
For more information and to find the publications for this project, please visit the TxDOT Research Library at the link shown below.
I'm sure everyone will start trickling back in. I know some people actually dropped off of the call, so maybe they'll pop back on. And we'll get going as soon as everyone's up and ready. And our next presentation will be by Jeff Kaufman with the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, TTI, on Next Gen TIM.
Good morning.
Hello, Jeff. Do you want to try and see if you can get your slides up, or is Aaron running those for you? Oh, there you go.
I think Aaron's
Already
running it for
there.
me. Thank you,
So
Aaron.
If you want, we can wait
Yeah,
just a minute, or we can start whenever you're ready. And thanks, Aaron.
We could give it a minute.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you had all your tech going too, so.
We're good. Give me a minute to scratch the intern real quick.
Sure.
The intern is feisty this morning.
And my dogs, I always put them away during these meetings because they will not be quiet, so.
This one's a cranky cat. A tortie nonetheless, so yeah, I
understand.
I have to roll with it.
I understand. Let's see, we've got 77 back. I think we just maybe lost a few after that first hour for other meetings, so we can probably get going as soon as you're ready.
Okay, let's go.
Thank you.
Well, good morning. My name is Jeff Kaufman. I am with the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, the Houston office, and I am working on a project that you all approved, which is trying to get 911 computer-aided dispatch information from law enforcement agencies into the traffic management centers in order to assist them in terms of finding incidents faster, collecting better data, and also to assist in actually coordinating incidents much more effectively. Let's go to the next slide. And for those of you who may not be familiar with the project and why we're doing this, currently traffic management centers, they monitor the freeways for crashes, stalls, debris, other incidents that are impacting traffic flow. The way they go about this traditionally is using the cameras on the freeway systems. We have speed detectors, be it Bluetooth devices or radar. Some folks use Google Maps. And some folks use even the public 911 sites that are available on the internet that show incidents as they come up. There are some challenges with this approach. First, the camera tours. What they do is they show about 5 to 10 second video feeds of a freeway segment. So they'll show you about 5 to 10 seconds of a segment, and then they'll go to the next camera, and then they'll go to the next camera. And the folks on the floor, they can miss an incident if camera is pointing in the wrong direction, or if something else takes their attention away. For areas with multiple freeways, traffic management staff might be focusing on one freeway and will miss an incident on a completely different freeway. Also, the data from Bluetooth speeds and radar and even Google information, they show the level of traffic, but don't necessarily show if there's an incident that's causing traffic. It could be rush hour or just construction, but they don't know exactly why this is occurring. The 911 data can actually help traffic management centers speed up how these incidents are managed and reduce potentially even the time it takes to clear an incident. Next slide. If a picture can tell 1,000 words, this is essentially it. The picture on the right, on the left is this is what the traffic management center sees. It's a perfectly fine freeway. The one on the right, well, this is what they're not seeing because the camera's pointing in the wrong direction. This is what we're trying to partially avoid. This is what we're trying. This is why this project is so important in terms of improving their effectiveness over at these traffic management centers. Next slide. So the benefits of this project, if folks are involved in a crash or a stall and there's no number to call, 911 is often the first call that's made. Upon receipt of that call, it goes into a system, and if the traffic management center can get a hold of this data, the staff can actually take a camera and immediately focus on the event and start assessing the event. Traditionally, what you're doing is when a 911 call comes in, you are waiting for the police or the fire department to arrive and assess the event. And you might be waiting for the first available officer or unit, and they're busy dealing with something else. And so you have to wait until they're done, and then they have to get there. And once they get there, they can assess the event, and then they have to call in other resources. And that takes even additional time. By ability of getting that information right off the bat, the Traffic Management Center staff can get the camera on it, begin processing what's going on, and update the law enforcement agencies on the situation so that other resources can be dispatched much sooner than when the officers come on the scene. One of the other benefits of this, and this comes from the EDC4 project from 2018, we're looking at ways to improve collection of traffic incident data. And so this is a wealth of data in terms of incident management, in terms of when calls actually come in, when incidents are truly detected, or as close as possible to when they were initially occurred. Also, you got a better idea of when units are actually dispatched and how long it takes for them to get to the scene and how long it takes for them to clear. Often this data also comes with an ID from the agency, and these IDs are also available in CRIS data. And so what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to take incident data in terms of how long it takes for certain units to arrive and how the freeway was impacted by it, and you can tie in the actual crash event to these events, and in the end, you can get a more complete understanding of an incident and what potentially caused traffic or response to occur as it occurred. Next slide, please. So in terms of the project activities that are involved in this this effort, there are several different tasks. First is the solicitation of law enforcement agencies, and we've identified about at least 130 that we need to talk to in terms of getting them involved in the project. And these are just agencies that abut freeway segments that have camera coverage, because this is where initially we are looking. As we improve the process and have traffic management centers in other places, we can expand that. But right now, the biggest effectiveness of this is to look at where we actually have camera coverage and TMC coverage. Second, we need to identify the systems that are out there, the data that are available from these systems, from these agencies, and how these data are going to be transmitted to the eventual system that will collect the data and transmit it to the traffic management centers. We are also going to develop a user interface for the traffic management center staff so that to alert the staff effectively and that they can take the information and utilize it appropriately in their systems. Fourth, we're looking to develop a CAD archive for future data analysis and for tying to other systems. And this would be something that we'll be able to collect the data as it comes in and tie it into either CRIS or Lone Star or RIMS, which are the two traffic management programs that are being used throughout the state. And finally, we want to develop a dashboard for decision makers to assess how TIM activities are progressing, be it total or for specific incidents or even specific freeways in question. Next slide. So in terms of the first task, agency solicitation, we've made presentations to most of the districts. We're still looking to present to Fort Worth. We've also presented to the statewide TIM work group. We've contacted over 60 agencies. Currently, we are receiving data from Fort Worth, and that is the basis of what we're trying to figure out the rest of the system on. As we work with the other agencies and get their data, it will feed into this, but currently Fort Worth is basically our test case. We have been talking and making some headway with San Antonio and El Paso. That alone is about 15 to 20 agencies that we can get into the system, and we'll cover the majority of both of those districts. There are some issues and challenges we're dealing with. We have to keep on top of these agencies to participate, and this is not necessarily their most pressing issue. So sometimes it's several phone calls, working through chains of command, but it is a constant process. We're addressing concerns about data that are not not allowed to be transmitted due to criminal justice standards. And so we're trying to make sure that they understand that we're not interested in any of that data. We are also addressing concerns about security because there is a transfer of information, and we want to ensure that folks that this is going to be a secure system, and that there shouldn't be any concerns about how the data are going to be used or abused. And finally, there's been discussions about the possible need for a memorandum of understanding regarding the receipt, use, and the provision of the data for agencies. And so as we're getting these concerns into play, we are looking at potentially developing such a document that could be used that could cover all the concerns. Next slide. Second part, data transmission. As mentioned, we're currently receiving and using forward data to develop the interface, the archive, and the dashboard. Actively working with San Antonio and El Paso because of how their interest and their ability to transmit data. Currently, the way the system is working, that the data are being transmitted every 2 minutes to our system with updates. So it's giving us information about when incidents are called in, when someone's en route, when an incident is cleared. What you see here in the middle of the slide is essentially what it looks like from Fort Worth in terms of the data, how it comes in. And this is a single snapshot of a single transmission. Some of the issues that we are dealing with this is that there are at least 15 different CAD systems that we've identified that we're going to need to potentially integrate. There are differences in the various call types. It could be something that, it could be a major accident, a minor accident, or it could be as detailed as animal on the road, or fatality, or bicycle pedestrian hit. So it's like there's levels of detail, and each agency has its own coding, and we need to take all those into consideration and make sure we're collecting only what we need for this project. Finally, we're working with small departments, and so they might not have a huge IT department. Some of them might have consultants that it would cost a bit of money in order to get data transmitted. If they had to set up the interface on their end. So we're trying to figure out ways to, as we're working with other agencies that have their systems in mind, that we can take the information and the transmission protocols and transfer them over to the other agencies. Next slide. We're also, as mentioned, working on user interface. The current interface is a map interface. It is populated with icons, which shows new events, active events, and closed events. If you click on an event, the icon, it'll bring up information on the event. And so Traffic Management Center can figure out where it is, and it will have all the data in terms of the timing of when it was called in. And so this is what is to catch the Traffic Management Center staff eye. We're going to be working with Traffic Management Center representatives to optimize this interface, because we want to make sure that what this is, be it the color scheme, be it maybe there needs to be a list next to it for those who do not work through, visually on maps. But basically, we need something that is useful most to those folks working at the TMCs. And finally, we're trying to figure a way to weed out events that are not on the system that's being monitored. Looking at this map, you can see that there are incidents throughout the city and they're not on the freeway system. And what we're trying to do is figure a way to take those out so it's less noise that the TMC staff have to look at. Next slide. Finally, we're looking at the data archive and the performance dashboard. Again, working with Fort Worth to develop the layout. The way it'll work is that currently is that every time an incident comes in, we are capturing the data and capturing each update of that event. So it's going to be just a giant list, and there will probably be events that have 3 or 4 records tied to it, and that's each of the updates that come in. These events have event IDs, and some of these are going to be CAD IDs, and some of them also have specific agency IDs that are utilized in crash reports. And the idea here is to be able to take this information, tie them into CRIS, so that we can take the data and these events and then tie them into the actual crash report. So you can see that, why is it that, non-serious injuries, have excessive delays in terms of the clearance of a wreck. That's something that could be looked at if you wish to go assess issues such as that. But by tying it in, we're able to get a far more complete understanding of what occurred during an event, as opposed to the piecemeal approach that we're doing now, where we have Lone Star and RIMS that capture the event on the freeway and when someone arrives and when the event clears, but you have no idea really what's going on in terms of the nature of the event from those systems. This will tie them all together. Also with this system, we're going to be able to track incidents that don't result in a crash report. There are crashes that occur, even crashes that are over $1,000 in nature. Some agencies, even some of the larger agencies, have policies in place where if the vehicles can move, and unfortunately $1,000, if you hit a Lexus and the bumper cover comes off, that might be $1,001 right there. But if they can move off the freeway, they will tell them to move off the freeway and tell them to fill out blue forms. And those are policies that some of the police departments have in place. They're still potentially impacting traffic. So we're going to be able to capture that information as well. In conjunction with our traffic management systems, Lone Star and RIMS, again, can provide a much better picture of the incident. And finally, and we haven't started this part yet because we're still trying to get all of our data together, we will be working with both the statewide work group and all the various agency district work groups and the traffic management centers to develop a performance dashboard so that policymakers, those that deal with these issues usually on a monthly basis, can be able to have a much more complete look and be able to do better reporting in terms of how traffic incidents are truly being assessed and how they're being addressed. I believe that is my last slide. At this point, I will take any questions.
Well, I have one question. Have you had difficulty getting a hold of, the right person? You mentioned something about that, of what was involved in trying to get those contacts, but I was just curious if you had any stories or anything that stood out when you were trying to get a hold of the right people.
It varies. There is one agency, no names, where I have had conversations with them, and this goes back to EDC4, where they wouldn't tell me what their CAD system was because it's considered secret, which it wasn't. Then I found another individual who was like, yeah, what can I get for you? And so we're on our way. There's a variety of different concerns, and some, in the Houston area, and some of this is based on because I'm in Houston and I know the people in play. This is something where there's stuff that's being worked up the ranks. And so because of that, I have to adhere to their protocols, and I'm not getting any negative feedback yet. It's just a matter of, again, this isn't priority to some folks, considering we have, other issues, throughout our metro areas. But, there are some challenges, but overall, I'd say we're getting positive response.
That's good. Yeah, it seems like it'll help a lot when we get this really going. So thank you for showing us and telling us what you've been up to. I appreciate it.
Okay.
And
any other questions? I'll take them. Or you have my email address. Feel free to shoot me an email.
Thank you. Yeah, if you want to add that to the chat, that would be really helpful right now too. So thank
Sure.
you so much, Jeff. And then next up, we actually have, so I've been working with a champion in the strategic planning division at TxDOT. And so we kind of work as a team and we meet regularly to discuss this next topic. And I'd like to introduce her. Her name is Yvette Flores, and she would like to say a few words real quick and introduce our next speaker. Oh, we can't hear you. Hi, Yvette. I still can't hear you, but I can see you. Your camera's working. Oh no. Does it look like it's unmuted? Okay, Erin, do you have any idea? Does she need to be allowed to speak? Let's see if I can do anything here.
She should have the ability, but let me double check.
Yeah, double check since she's not a normal speaker. So we have some comments. Thank you, Jeff, for putting your contact information. And if anyone has any questions about any of these presentations, just let Erin or myself know. And then also, we will be providing these slides and the recording links to all that. And if you are looking for that, you can find those on our STIC website for any of our past meetings as well. And Erin, if you want, you can put the STIC link. But Yvette, nothing's changing, is it? You want to try again real quick to see? Because you appear to be muted. Is it your mic? Do you have your headset plugged in? No, darn it, it's so frustrating. Well, I can tell you, Yvette does a great job, and she's quite a champion for the Texas Innovation Alliance and the Texas Technology Task Force. And it is really a shame that we're not getting this to work right now. Erin, any luck there?
No, she shows that she's unmuted on my end. And anytime she goes back on mute, I'll click the asked to unmute, but it's not changing anything. So, but that's all I'm able to do from my end.
Do you have a phone? You just want to chime in real quick? Or sometimes my husband has to do it. No, I still can't hear you. I can see you talking, but thank you so much, Yvette. Okay, well, let's talk about TxDOT's innovation story today. And that's a shame we didn't get to hear from Yvette. Maybe she can come back for our next meeting. So Christy Chin is the one who will be talking to us today, and she's going to go over what it is we're doing with innovation at TxDOT right now, and just a few things that you may not be aware of. You may already be involved, or you may just not know about it. So Christy, are you up and running?
I hope so. Are you able to hear me?
Oh, I see you. Yay. And I can hear you. I'm so sorry that happened to Yvette, but.
Oh, no worries. That sounds good. And I can just echo, we really appreciate being able to work with you, Shelley, as well as Yvette. She's been just really a great champion for several of the innovation programs that have been happening at TxDOT. So today I'm going to talk about a few different things. But first I wanted to take us back to 2009. And so if we can remember, that's when Google first launched its self-driving car project. And that was really the first big splash in the public eye. And then in 2015, that's when the car first landed on Austin streets. What really set it off, though, was the headlines. I think if y'all remember, we heard that there are going to be robo-taxis on all of the streets, flying cars were going to take over, and it was all going to happen tomorrow. But here we are in 2022, and we realize that hasn't been the case. Automated vehicles, just like any number of technologies, they go through what they call the hype cycle. So there's that first really big buzz when there's a new technology, there's just a lot of energy and momentum around it. But eventually we really top out and realize that this is going to take a lot more work and be much harder than we originally thought. And so that process in trying to navigate the hype cycle, it's really daunting to public agencies such as TxDOT, Federal Highway, and others. And it hasn't been that case just with automated vehicles, right? There's been a lot of discussion about the promise of connected vehicle technology, what big data can do, 3D printing, drones. So all of these, there's a lot of potential, but it's really trying to navigate that hype cycle, understand what's real, and then what is our role as public agencies in trying to shepherd these technologies through. So TxDOT has a number of innovation programs. I'm going to talk about just two of them today, the Texas Innovation Alliance, as well as the Texas Technology Task Force. But for context, TxDOT has several different aspects going on, and really what these are all trying to do, trying to understand what's out there, what's real versus hype, and then kind of what do we do with the technologies. If you think about research and implementation, really is a spectrum. The Texas Technology Task Force is on that early research process, whereas the STIC and the Texas Innovation Alliance, those are ready to go deployment types of efforts. And so I'm going to start first with the Texas Innovation Alliance and just walk through some of its origins, structure, and best practices. So starting off with the origin story, it was back in 2016, the USDOT launched the USDOT Smart City Challenge. That was a $50 million grant application where cities were being asked to look at how these new technologies could really make a difference in the community. So the city of Austin was a finalist in that application. And even though Austin didn't win, there was just so much momentum. A number of public agencies came to the table, the private sector, the research institutions. So we were all collaborating about what these technologies could mean for the future of transportation here in our local communities. So we had the opportunity to work with the city, worked with TxDOT to then jumpstart. We've got now 10 different smart city teams around the state. And so we came together at the first Texas Mobility Summit and formed what is today the Texas Innovation Alliance. And so we engage in a number of things. Part of it is we realized that the challenges that Austin is facing are actually happening and impactful for TxDOT, for El Paso, for Arlington, Bryan College Station, Corpus Christi, what have you. Here in Texas, we're facing so much rapid growth, and transportation is changing at such a pace that we really need to be able to work collectively in order to identify what some of these best practices are. So we've worked to help coordinate grant applications. That we heard a lot this morning about all the different federal opportunities that are coming down the pipeline. And so we've been working with the Alliance to try to identify them, as well as be able to prepare the state to be able to be competitive. We've also helped to connect in researchers with local needs. And so whether that's trying to understand the state of inductive charging and electrification, or what's happening in the scooter space, we've been able to connect in expertise in the research community with the local practitioners who are on the ground. And then lastly, a lot of what we provide is just the knowledge sharing, be able to connect peer to peer, has made a major impact throughout the state. Taking a closer look now at the organizational structure, we've had a team-based model. And so each of the dots you see on the left is a team. So if we take a closer look, what is a team? So there's a team lead, which are typically 1 or 2 point persons in the region who are champions of innovation. But then anywhere, it's really kind of any of the public agency stakeholders that need a seat at the table, right? Transportation and the public, they don't necessarily care if it's a TxDOT road, a county road, a city road. It all has to work as one system. So the team structure invites TxDOT districts, the transit agency, the MPOs and the councils of government, as well as the ports or other transportation stakeholders to really think about their system holistically. And so together, the team first identifies what their needs and transportation challenges are. And then from there, they're able to develop and prepare themselves for either grant applications or deploy various local projects. So we've got 10 different regional teams, kind of across the network. It's 40 plus agencies and 100 people. And so there's a few different engagements that we do. We meet every couple weeks with the team leads in order to have conversations, strategy discussions, trying to understand what is in the bipartisan infrastructure law and how to position ourselves. But a lot of it too is best practices. Many of the folks here on this call have been in attendance of the annual Texas Mobility Summit. So it's a conference in a way to keep all the program together. Past few years, we've gone virtual. So we're going to stay virtual for 1 more year and then come back next year in full force. We'll be in person. And then something new that we've started is a mentorship network. So we've been able to organize cohorts of the teams and pair those with more expertise with those who are trying to get started in a particular area. And then last part, just to kind of outline some of the structure and activities that we've been working on this year. We've picked out 3 different themes and we've organized these deep dive calls. So the first, there's been a lot of activity on alternative fuels, both the electrification piece as well as hydrogen fuel cell technology. So here in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a deep dive where the Port of Corpus Christi helps to facilitate a discussion around hydrogen fuel cell technology and the freight sector in particular. And then coming up this summer, chunk of programming is going to be focused on big data. So there's a number of data applications that are out there. We've heard a lot about artificial intelligence. And so what are some of the ways in which we can use the tools, such as the ones that Jeff presented, and other data sources in order to help tackle either our Vision Zero goals or improve congestion management, or there's even been some to look at the long-range planning. And then the last bit of programming that we're going to tackle here in the fall is going to be around connected and automated vehicle best practices. Many folks are familiar with the Texas Connected Freight Corridors project. That's been a big boon for the state. And so trying to look at how that could also offer assistance to local deployments that are looking to take place, or even on the automated side, both on the automated shuttles, automated transit and buses have been of high interest, or even some of the data sharing that could help take place from automated trucks. So that helps to round out the alliance. And now I'm going to switch gears and talk about the Texas Technology Task Force. And the way that we've structured this one, we break it down into 3 different parts. So people, portfolio, and plan. So on the people side, it's really about looking at different subject matter experts. I'll go into a little bit more detail about the emerging technology portfolio and the number of technologies that we're tracking. And then the last part are the deliverables and the outputs that the task force is able to produce. So starting off with the people, there are a number, we have 8 different task force members. Currently, it's a combination of public agencies, private sector, as well as research. We hold quarterly meetings where we invite in different subject matter experts to have a panel discussion, or most recently we did a fireside chat. And so that's an opportunity once a quarter to be able to really advise and offer guidance to TxDOT about some of these key issues. So just last week, we had a fireside chat with Pennsylvania DOT about best practices related to automated vehicles and some of the opportunities that Texas can learn and wrap into its own connected and automated vehicle task force. We also have been tracking alternative funding mechanisms. And so we've held a panel that was looking at road user charges and how Texas can consider some of the alternatives to the gas tax. So gearing up, we're going to be holding another meeting this summer. I think that's a great opportunity to be able to work and get input here from the STIC and see what collaboration opportunities there might be in the future. On the portfolio side, this is kind of the full suite of technologies that we're tracking. They're organized into these 6 major buckets. And the way that we've identified kind of if there's something worth knowing, it goes into the portfolio. This gets updated once a year. And then any new additions, the team will do an assessment of the technology to understand how mature is it, how well does it align with TxDOT's goals, what are some of the major barriers to implementation, and then offer various recommendations. So the task force revisits this regularly. And then as you can see here, there's a number of them. And so we've really isolated and boiled it down to top 5. So top 5 or 6 have been connected vehicles, automated vehicles, electrification systems, mobility as a service, big data, and drones. And so those are kind of the core ones that we track. But again, this is something that gets updated on a fairly regular basis. And then the deliverables and outputs that the task force provides. The first big one is we publish a volume of white papers every year. So currently the team has been working on 4. Electrification again is a major topic. Something else that's front of mind are supply chain disruptions. We've also got one on leveraging the right-of-way for broadband as well as electrification infrastructure. And then the last one is on Texas demographic shifts. So trying to understand how is Texas urbanizing. As part of that, what are the diversification impacts as well as the aging and how that will impact the transportation system. The next part, we spend a lot of time, right? We talk about all these technologies that can be very technical, but at the end of the day, it needs to be communicated to policymakers, the public, executive level leadership. And so we spend a lot of time thinking through what is that innovation story? What are the benefits of these technologies and how can TxDOT and Texas really play a role in shepherding them through. Then the last piece is the technology utilization plan and its companion digital version, which is the technology outlook. And so this is kind of the way that we take that portfolio where there were 30 some odd different technologies, boil it down to the top 5 or 6, and we put forward recommendations. So how is the technology should be utilized? Is it ready for more research? Is it ready to go for implementation? And if so, at what scale? Should we just be piloting and testing it, or is it ready for something bigger and a larger deployment? And the last part is just what are some of the potential policy impacts? And so we look at the research, the implementation, and the impact pieces of each of the technologies and put that forward for TxDOT as well as other public agencies to consume. And so this is the last slide. Just to close out, wanted to highlight some of these collaboration opportunities. TxDOT has done a great job in being able to build out a number of its innovation programs. I think that the STIC, the task force, the alliance, there's a lot of synergies here. And so happy to answer any questions, but I think we can all collectively work together. I think there's some good coordination points and just in terms of how do we assess these emerging technologies? How do we transition them from the research into the implementation stages? And then ultimately, how do we scale and develop best practices? And with that, I'll turn things back to Shelley or Vivette, if you're able to get your audio to work.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh boy. Thank you. Thank you, Christy, for that overview. I just want to say real quick that, and adding along to what Darren said earlier, the futures team that I work with in the strategic planning division, we work really hard to inform and educate TxDOT on emerging technologies, as well as pull together the expertise within the department to implement them. So the Texas Innovation Alliance and the Texas Technology Task Force are just 2 of the ways that we focus our efforts, and they've been really helpful along with CTR and Christie's input and their expertise in helping TxDOT know what we need to focus on so that we can, spread the word throughout the department. So thank you, Christy. I just wanted to say those few words.
That was a very helpful presentation, and thank you, Yvette, for saying that. Christy, I do have a question. We do have a few MPOs, I'm not sure if they're still on, but that are not, as far as I know, part of the, Innovation Alliance team lead groups. So if you have any ideas or ways to incorporate them, can you either leave maybe a link to your email or something like that, where they can get in touch with you and figure out how to get involved, or they can reach out to me or Yvette. But if I don't know how you incorporate new groups, because I noticed on the map that you had a lot of the large metropolitan areas, but then there were others that I did not see, like in the West Texas area. So I wasn't sure if y'all were growing or wanting to incorporate more, and if so, just how would they get involved?
Sure, I went ahead and dropped my email into the chat, and then the regions where there's an existing team, I'm happy to help facilitate introductions, put you in touch with the team leads, as well as just get you on our listserv so that you can participate in the calls. And then for the regions that aren't represented yet, we'd be happy to hear from you. We've recently added Team Hayes County, and so they've been kind of following along for a while. And similarly, they're looking to try to get more involved. And so happy to set up some time with you. We can discuss kind of what that looks like. It can be anything from right now I'm just in the listening stages and want to be in listening and learning mode, all the way to I'm ready to form a team, try to anticipate some of these grant opportunities and get involved at a higher level. We're happy to work with kind of anything in between.
Great, thank you. And if anyone has any questions for Christy, now is a great opportunity. We have a couple of minutes we can work with if you want to. I haven't seen anything added in the chat. Darren did, let's see. No, Darren's next up. He's the one who will get us going with our closing remarks. But if there's any time, especially at the end of these meetings, that someone from the smaller MPO or someone who just hasn't been involved with the STIC, if you would like to just speak up now and say something, you're more than welcome to. And then we do often dismiss invitees about now, because sometimes, we're covering more updates and things more internal that you may not need to be a part of and you might want to leave, but we're not saying you have to leave when we dismiss you all. It's just important that you feel comfortable talking right now before. And I see Mukesh Kumar has his hand up. Did you have something you wanted to say, Mukesh?
Yeah, hi. I'm fairly new to Texas altogether, and I'm in Waco, Texas. And what I wanted to ask was that all the presentations that these are great and very helpful. So thank you for organizing it, and I look forward to getting more involved. But one of the important challenge that I see is a lot of innovation that also needs to occur in the planning processes themselves. And so many times the products or the projects that are often the target or the central point of innovative ideas, there is a gap between the people who actually experience it, so people who serve on the policy board, for instance, or the community leadership. And it is a lot harder to communicate with them because the solutions we come up with through these innovative products or new technologies, they're often trying to solve a problem that are simply not that well defined for some of the people who we interact with in the community. And so what I wanted to ask was if there is any opportunity to have that discussion so that we can define the mobility challenge, for instance, for the community in a more meaningful way, rather than in a manner that the innovative technology that we have available to us defines the problem itself.
That is a great question. And honestly, I think everything that you're speaking of, I highly encourage you to reach out to Christy, because there are a lot of opportunities with the Innovation Alliance where different peers from throughout the state, can talk about things like that and figure out ways to improve those innovation planning practices and fill in those gaps. Christy, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to add on, I think that's a great point. We talk a lot about it not being technology for technology's sake, but really what is that problem, that challenge that you are trying to address. And so we have held and organized local workshops with either community or public agency leaders to take that first step and kind of out of the whole host of challenges, really kind of what are the priority ones, just making sure that they're well defined before trying to look to the technology or even a process type of improvement.
So does that sound like something, Mukesh, that will help you out? Like maybe if you reach out to them, maybe you can listen in on the next TIA team lead call or something like that. We can just see if that's a place for you to, an outlet or a place for you to get that structure that you need.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I'll definitely reach out. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. And if there's nothing else, Darren, are you available?
Yeah, I'm here.
I just don't see it. Okay, there it is.
That was a great question.
Yeah.
I will say one of the reasons I wanted Christy to kind of make sure everybody in this environment was understanding the Innovation Alliance and the Tech Task Force is to understand that there are complementary efforts, as well as some overlap. And a part of what I'm working with the department is how do we better consolidate those activities, at least an understanding. Could we see a day where the STIC is a body that encompasses some of the things you just heard? Yeah, we could see that too in terms of span of control and challenges there. And that's we spoke about this with our Tech Task Force members a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, and also the Innovation Alliance folks. I don't know where we'll be with that. These are things that we've got to look at in terms of how we would manage them. But I know that there's a critical need for TxDOT, and I really think for mobility in general to inform, to, as Chrissy talked about, to carry it across from identifying emerging technologies to research to then implementations and pilots, and then scale as appropriate, not only on TxDOT system, but where appropriate across the state, if we can help facilitate that and to collaborate on things like potential future grants and other programs. So there's a lot of seeming efforts that we need to make sure that we understand them across these organizations. So I will be working on that a large part in the coming months with folks within TxDOT and our team at Federal Highways to try and pull all that get together, and at a minimum better tell the message of what all the innovation is that's happening in the department and in mobility statewide as we grow that information. And I do appreciate the part about planning, and I do think there's a lot of discussion there too that we need to try and solve. I probably won't ever be able to put all innovative activities under one umbrella. That's just almost beyond the ability to do, especially when you get into things like process improvement. But I think we're talking about technology, and we're talking about safety, and we're talking about system improvement, and all that's in the life cycle to do that, I think is applicable, and we want to tell our message and then also share it and collaborate on it. So I'm very excited to move forward with it, and I hope that these presentations were very valuable today, and certainly what's going on with urban air, and drones, and just the entirety of what's in the infrastructure bill. Very appreciative of what we're faced with. It's a good problem to have when you have more resources and you got to figure out how to do your best to effectively and efficiently use them. So I'm excited about that as well. I think I'm supposed to say at this point that you're welcome to stay on if you want, but we're going to turn it over to our STIC council members for them to give any updates that they may want to do before we close out the session. So if if we've reached the point where you've got to move and go forward and do other great things, thanks for your participation today, and look forward to the next STIC meeting with you.
Thank you, Darren. That was a good summary and closing. And now, of course, it's an opportunity to go around the table and see if anyone, any of our members or anyone who's just attending and really they want to give us an update. We can do that and we can start. I mean, Al has already covered a lot today, so we probably don't have to go back. But Al, did you have any closing thoughts? You're welcome to speak up if you do.
I am good, Shelley. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, and then next, I noticed we had Alan McWilliams with GLO here. Are you still on, Alan? Where'd he go? Let's see. He might have dropped off. So a lot of people might have dropped off. These were just people that were here earlier. Andrea, did you have anything you wanted to say today?
Thanks, Shelley. I don't. I just thank you for including me. And we've been talking internally about some of the ways we're changing things during COVID to adapt and trying to think through if there's anything that would be of value to the other members of the STIC. So I'll stay in touch with you and Kevin and Darren, and perhaps we can come up with something.
Thank you. We do appreciate that. And then Ashby, are you on? Saw Ashby earlier, but maybe. Okay, and then Ashley Williams could not come today. She had something come up at the last minute. She let me know in advance. I don't think Brandon Hicks is here. Noah, are you still on? So recently, Brian Sims with LTAP. Oh, yay, good. Brian Sims with LTAP retired at the end of, was it February? And Noah came on right before then, and we hadn't had a STIC meeting yet. So this is actually, is this your first STIC meeting, Noah?
Yes, it is.
Well, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Is there anything you want to say or any thoughts, or if you just want to update us on something?
Nothing. I don't have anything to update with you at this time, but a pleasure to be here and still catching up on where we're at and gaining a lot of information. But it sounds like there's a lot of new innovative long-range planning and it's just wonderful opportunities that are happening here in Texas. So glad to meet you all. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Thank you so much. And then Darren, of course, we've already gone through. David, are you on?
Wait, I had one more.
Oh, there, you do have another one. Look at you on the list. So
I should have said
It's like
this.
I knew.
Unfortunately, people have dropped up. So there is, if you really enjoy this, and if you know somebody that is looking for a challenging opportunity, the division director position that oversees all of this is posted right now. And I encourage you to identify future leaders that might be wanting to do this job and take it on.
Great plug. So yeah, you're right. We lost some, but at least we have a few, and yeah, spread that word. And then David Palmer, are you still on? Yeah, I see you. Did you have something you wanted to tell us today?
Just I was going to touch on that. It was a good presentation, good information today. I really like the detail on the funding and stuff as well. That cleared a very comprehensive, very extensive and comprehensive bill. It was put into pretty simple terms, I think, for those of us that are simple. But with that said, I was just going to touch base and just kind of remind everybody that we're continuing to push forward on the technology side with replacing our 20-plus-year-old in-car system along with our CAD system that communication uses, and that we're deploying for the first time ever for our agency, deploying cell phones to all our troopers as well, so that they'll have multiple options on how to connect to the in-car system, and also give us better ability to, instead of just tracking a car, be able to track the whereabouts and stuff of our troopers better, so that when they're out there and they get disconnected or whatever from the radio or whatever else in a foot pursuit or things like that, that we're able to better locate them in a timely manner. So I just want to let you know we're pretty excited about that. it's going to be like a 2-year plus process in the transition, but we're moving forward on it. That's all I had.
Great. That sounds like it's going to be really helpful. I mean, they have a hard job already. Might as well give them some tools that'll make it easier. Elizabeth, are you on today? I saw you earlier, but let's see. I don't see her now. That's okay. And then next would be, I didn't see Gary Rabba unless anyone was here to speak on behalf of, well, there might be someone for NTTA as well. If so, you're welcome to speak up. Or American Council of Engineering Companies of Texas, you're welcome to speak up as well. I saw Sid. Are you still on, Sid? Sid was on earlier. Yeah, again, conflicts with time. That was for AMPO. And then Jennifer Woodard, I don't see her. Is there anybody for Associated General Contractors of Texas? Nope.
Shelley,
Go ahead.
This is Edwin Friedrichs from ACEC.
Oh, great.
I work with Gary. I'm the National Director for Texas, and we're having conversations internally about ways we can engage more and get members who are thinking inside their private businesses of how they can maybe bring ideas forward for consideration, or how we can help. We do at some other organizations, and particularly with governments, where we have a group of people who see things in the field that seem to work really well or not working, just to provide information back here in Houston or some other counties or cities. Such as today, I was driving I-10 in the dark back early this morning from West San Antonio, and saw the beautiful job TxDOT is doing with their contractor on the east side Interstate 10 projects, and was wondering how, if there's studies on enhanced construction zone traffic control or guidance systems relative to the number of accidents experienced there versus other similar projects I drive on where all the buttons and striping are gone and the signs are blown over. It would be an investment versus return type question, but we see a lot of things like that. We're trying to prioritize them to try and bring some ideas in, because we do use technology a lot in our business, but I think this would be a good venue to share and to also thank everybody for what y'all are doing in innovation, because it's definitely needed, as particularly as you say, with 1,000 people a day coming to Texas. So we appreciate the opportunity to participate.
Thank you for that. That was really helpful. I don't know if anyone on the call has any follow-up information, but that was a great research topic suggestion too, but like just the things that we could do in that area. So thank you for that. And then next we have Joe. Are you on? Yeah, we know Joe was on. Are you still on, Joe? There you are. You're muted right now, but do you have anything you wanted to say, Joe Trammell? Let's see. It's okay. Some people are having trouble unmuting, so if not, you can speak up when you get a moment. I don't know if Kevin and Kirk if either one of y'all have anything else you want to say after that presentation, feel free to chime in. I know we have CTRMA. Is Fabiola still here? She might have dropped off. But yeah, we did have representation from CTRMA today, which was good. We're looking at maybe if James Bass wants to participate in the future. Anybody from NCT COG today?
Hi, Shelley. I'm online.
Oh, you're there. I see now.
I just have a few updates. So we've been working with our TxDOT district on our Surface Transportation Funding Alternatives program. And this is a federal grant program that we got to implement to develop and test a framework to apply toll roads as well as gas supported roads to offer incentives for changing behavior on those particular roadways to the users or vehicles. So that should be kicking off probably in the next month, hopefully. we'll be able to get that project started in cooperation with Federal Highway and TxDOT. Other things we've been working on, we're about ready to wrap up our traffic signal equipment inventory. So we've inventoried over 6,000 traffic signals in the Dallas-Fort Worth region. We want to understand what equipment is out of each location, and we've developed a minimum standard by traffic signal location so we can kind of at least bring all of the signals in our region up to a minimum standard. So we'll utilize that inventory to identify where we want to make improvements and deploy additional technology. We should be able to wrap that up by the end of April. So we'll have a good idea of how many signals are meeting that minimum requirement and how many we might need to go fund and what that price tag looks like. Might have to be staged approach, I'm not sure. And then we're also going to be releasing a request for information on a traffic signal performance platform. We want to, again, we're looking at the equipment side of traffic signals, but we also want to look at the performance side of the traffic signals to see how they're performing in terms of arrivals on red, arrivals on green, queue, length, delay at the signal, so we can identify what type of improvements need to be made at the signals within our region and hopefully have better operation of those signals across jurisdictional lines. So those are some of the big things that we're working on.
That's great. And I don't know if you caught wind that, every year we do this STIC incentive. I don't know if y'all have anything to share. I remember we had some conversations last year and, if there's anything, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. And then let's see who else. I think Tony or anybody for ITS America.
That's me, Shelley Min.
Oh,
I'm here
Min.
for ITS
Yay.
Texas.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here. Happy to be here and just listen in. Great information. And I have nothing to update.
Okay, well, thanks for your comment anyway. That's very kind
Sure.
of you. So I don't know if there anyone else, if there are any other people that would like to make a comment, you can go ahead and do that now. I think I've gone through everyone that I can see on the list that's here, but I might be reading the names wrong or something. So I did notice we had some other TxDOT leaders. You're also welcome to speak up if you just have a comment or a question while we have the council all here. And then if not, we can go ahead and adjourn. I don't see any comments that I missed. All right, well, thank you guys for being here. You really do make this work. Without you, we couldn't do it. And we might be doing the next one hybrid. So we'll see. Darren, anything else?
Thank you all.
Bye, guys.
Good job, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Natalie.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Shelley.
Of course.
Talk to you, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Shelley. Bye.